One summer day, a tour guide is leading his usual hiking visitors up by the side of a mountain when he notices someone falling behind. He calls up to him, but this young man is already sweating profusely from exertion. The others start teasing him for being so weak. But the young man named Subai explains that he is actually a writer, so he is not used to physical work. Silently, he curses his editor who tricked him into going on this climbing trip. However, his thoughts were interrupted when the walking cane he was clutching suddenly breaks, causing him to lose his footing and go over the edge of the cliff. In an instant, Subai was falling off the cliff. A few hours later, his eyes slowly open, but what he sees confuses him. The last thing he remembered is falling off a cliff, so why does he seem to be lying down in with his hands tied? His eyes roam his surroundings, and he suddenly realizes someone was looking at him. It was a strange-looking girl looking at him hungrily while drooling all over him. Subai forces himself to calm down since surely this girl wouldn't eat him. Unfortunately, the girl pulls out a long knife from behind her and starts talking in a strange language. She then starts poking his side with her fingers as if testing his meat's tenderness. Subai struggles and curses the heavens for not letting him die in the fall, but just letting him get eaten by cannibals. The strange girl then stands towering over him and slashes the sword at him. However, the sword just cuts off his restraints, freeing Subai from his bindings. The girl then wipes away the drool on her face and walks away. In her own language, the girl reminds herself that she cannot eat people no matter how hungry she is. Meanwhile, Subai pushes himself up and finally gets a better look at his captor. Slowly but surely, he realizes that this girl has ears sprouting out of her head and a tail out of her skirt. Wait a minute, did he really get transported into another world? Subai calms himself down and thinks things over. As a writer, he cannot just accept that he was teleported to a magical world. He first needs to observe the situation more. Looking around, he was laying down on a bed of dried grass. There were animal bones strewn everywhere, and the remnants of a bonfire. In summary, the place looks really bad and seems very primitive. Subai stands up and follows the girl out of the tent. Outside, he witnesses kids running and adults walking around with spears and wild boars slung over his shoulder. Of course, all of these people seem to be different kinds of upright walking animals themselves. That's when Subai realizes that he truly seems to be in a primitive world, where anthropomorphic animals rule. A shadow then looms over him as a gigantic man asks him for his name and his reason for visiting their Yanglong tribe. Of course, Subai couldn't understand their language. Meanwhile, the girl from earlier happily greets her father. They wonder why Subai isn't talking and guess that he's from a large tribe due to his thin and delicate features. Since the tribe sorcerer wants to see him, they just decide to bring him along. The two lead Subai through their village who can't help but look around. Subai realizes that he must truly be in another world because this place couldn't exist on Earth. Meanwhile, the villagers gawk at him since he doesn't have any tail or wings or muscles. Subai decides to just follow along with his captors since it's unrealistic for him to escape for now. The presence of animal bones around and the onlooker's curious face means that these people probably aren't cannibals. A few moments later, the huge man talks to him once again, but he still cannot understand him. But this time, the man points to a nearby large tent, signaling for him to enter. Inside the tent, the village leaders are in a crisis since they have tested every villager, but no one else has any magic talent. When the old sorcerer dies any day now, they wouldn't have any more sorcerers, and their tribe would perish. Left with no choice, they would have to test the last remaining person in the tribe, the outsider they found just a few days ago. Subai enters the tent and observes that he must be facing the tribe's leader now. The old-aged man beckons him to sit in front of him. Subai does so, and he plans that if things go awry, he'll just take this old man hostage. At first, the old man seemed to be sleeping, but he suddenly opened his eyes and Subai found himself falling once again in a sea of stars. His falling stops and a blazing fire appears before him, with a strange symbol inside it. The old man appears before him and explains that they are in Subai's soul and he is converting the language directly into his soul. He asks Subai if he can see it, and Subai asks if he's talking about the dragon or snake-like symbol in the fire. Satisfied, the old sorcerer halts the process and proclaims to the whole village that Subai will from henceforth be part of the Yanglong tribe as the sorcerer. The others are surprised and elated at the news that their tribe will survive. One member wonders if they can truly let an outsider child become a sorcerer, but the others remind him that they have no choice, and the old sorcerer had chosen him. Meanwhile, Subai wonders if he truly can be a sorcerer. Outside, Subai overhears the other tribe members talking about how he will become the next sorcerer. Subai wonders if this truly is a good thing, but the girl from earlier scolds him. She introduces herself as Yanhua and tells Subai that she'll be in charge of taking care of him. First, Subai wants to learn more about their tribe. Yanhua explains that their totem is called the Yanlong, also making it their tribe's name. Subai wonders if the totem is what he saw earlier in the flame. Yanhua further explains that the leader of the tribe is the old sorcerer. Under him is her father, Yanku, the chieftain. Under the chieftain are the captains, the hunters, the totem soldiers, reserve soldiers, and lastly, the commoners. Subai wonders why there are so many positions when there only seem to be a few tribe members, but this immediately sours Yanhua's mood. A depressed Yanhua elaborates that in the past, there used to be many of them. They once lived in their fertile ancestral land, where they didn't have to worry about meat or water. They consist of 300 people, with 65 soldiers in just one hunter group. But 6 months ago, they became the target of the Black Snake tribe. Their hunting grounds were attacked, many were killed, and their whole ancestral lands were taken over. Thus, they were forced to migrate there. Yanhua promises to get stronger, save their captive comrades, and restore the ancestral land. After Yanhua's story, Subai visits the different parts of the village. Along the way, Subai slowly sees the picture more clearly. Bad things are happening to the tribe. Everyone is hungry, the whole village is very dirty, and if a pandemic occurs, it would easily kill many. Subai scratches his head in frustration, wondering what he should do. All of a sudden, a window opens in front of him, informing him that the daily help system is activated. Subai realizes that, as a writer, he should have expected that something like this would exist for someone who was transported to another world. Subai asks the system what his functions are, and the system explains that he can give a daily random bonus reward to Subai, ranging from normal bonus, intermediate bonus, and premium bonus. Further bonuses will be granted 1 year later. Subai recognizes that if he waited for 1 year, then they'd already be dead from hunger. The system also explains that it can only be seen by Subai himself. Meanwhile, Yanhua is getting annoyed at Subai's abrupt change in behavior. She remarks that she took the time to give him a briefing about their tribe, so why is he ignoring her now? Subai doesn't want to reveal the system to her, so he excuses himself by explaining that his head is a little dizzy now. An annoyed Yanhua decides that if he's tired, then she'll bring him now to a place where he can rest. They enter a tent that Subai guesses is the place where he'll live. Meanwhile, Yanhua is blushing and sitting in the corner. Subai, of course, pays her no mind and immediately lies down on the bed. A little while later, he notices a strange smell on the bed and starts sniffing it. It smelled a bit like milk, which actually smells good. However, Yanhua suddenly tackles him and yells out that he shouldn't sniff it. She blushes and explains that it's not actually his place, but hers place. Subai realizes he is in a lot of trouble. Yanhua had allowed him to stay at her home, and that meant that they would live together. Even though she has horns, Subai cannot deny that Yanhua's body and face are very attractive. He might not be able to stop himself. However, Yanhua pinches his cheek and explains that she's actually not staying for the night because she's going on patrol. After she leaves, Subai opens his system and accesses his daily reward. Since it was his first time using the bonus system, Subai received an intermediate bonus, the level 1 healing skill. Since it's level 1, Subai wonders if he can upgrade it. Thankfully, he doesn't have to wonder long because the system explains that it will level up when his skill proficiency level increases. To check his proficiency, he can open his attribute panel. On the attribute panel, Subai can see his stamina, strength, and other stats, along with his job and skills. He gets disappointed because all his status is so low, probably because he's just been lying down on his job as a writer. He goes to sleep promising to exercise more. Meanwhile, in another tent, the old sorcerer and Yanku the chieftain are having a conversation. Yanhua wonders if they can genuinely make the unknown Subai their sorcerer, but the old sorcerer reminds him that they have already run out of time to find someone else. The old sorcerer coughs violently and blood splatters his hand. He remarks that he can only hold on for a little while longer. Yanku apologizes to the sorcerer for allowing him to get hurt. If only they were stronger, then the sorcerer wouldn't have been hurt protecting them. The sorcerer consoles him and urges him to focus on the inheritance ceremony in 3 days. Yanku asks if they should first investigate Subai, since he might be from the Black Snake tribe, but the sorcerer rejects this plan. He informs him that the Black Snake tribe wouldn't be able to raise such a clean and soft child. He had also observed Subai's soul, and he couldn't find a trace of malice in it. In fact, Subai might be from a legendary tribe for having such a pure soul. He instructs Yanku to protect Subai as long as he doesn't do any evil. Yanku was about to leave when the old sorcerer beckoned him back for one more thing. He tells Yanku that it might be better for their tribe if they have more generations of wizards in the future. A twinkle appears in Yanku's eyes, and he assures their leader that he knows what to do. Outside, he catches Yanhua eavesdropping on their tent. Yanhua tries to run away and escape, but Yanku suddenly takes hold of his daughter and tells her that he has a task for her. Yanhua brightens at the thought of doing an important mission for her father, but her father suddenly tasks her with marrying the young sorcerer and bearing a lot of children. Yanhua was stunned, and her face got very red in embarrassment. She rejects her father's orders and exclaims that she'll only marry someone who can beat her. Subai is so skinny that there's no way he can beat her. She runs away yelling out that she doesn't want children. She only wants to get stronger and avenge their tribe. Her father chases after her, leaving the tent and the old sorcerer inside, smiling at the energetic shouts of his tribe. He promises to put forth the remainder of his life in ensuring the progress of his tribe's children. The following day, Subai exits Yanhua's tent shivering from the cold. He surveys the tent and sees that it has a lot of holes, allowing the cold air in. He slept all curled up due to it, so he decides to fix it before the next night falls. When Yanhua arrives, Subai asks for her help in finding more straw to plug the holes with. However, Yanhua blushes upon seeing him because all she can remember is how her father had ordered her to make babies with Subai. She keeps imagining what their kids would look like. She strikes Subai in embarrassment, declaring that she doesn't want to be with him. Subai weakly retorts that he has no idea what she's talking about, and he just wants straw. Thus, Yanhua leads him through the village to where they keep the straw. On the way there, Subai notices two kids sleeping in the open, only covered by a lean-to. The two kids are shivering in the cold, and he asks Yanhua why they weren't sleeping at home. Yanhua explains that most people don't have a house of their own because animal fur is very valuable. Subai, being the sorcerer, is much more important than them. Subai can only sadly look at them and follow Yanhua. A few minutes later, they return with bundles of straw in their arms. Upon passing the two kids, Subai places all the straws he has over the two kids. The added warmth and protection make the two kids smile in their sleep and slumber more deeply. Yanhua asks Subai why he did that when he was the most important person in the village. However, Subai decisively replies that the kids are equally as important. This made Yanhua realize that Subai might not be the same person she had imagined. Later that afternoon, a guard announces the return of their hunting squad. The villagers hurriedly welcome their arrival as multiple men return to the village with captured boars slung across their shoulders. The villagers are glad that for the next few days, the kids won't have to be hungry anymore. Meanwhile, a starving Subai asks Yanhua how the food is rationed throughout the tribe. Yanhua explains that most of the food is prioritized for the totem warriors. A small portion is then given to the reservists and children. Subai asks about the old men and women, but Yanhua answers that they can only eat meat occasionally. The old people usually just pick wild fruits to eat, so basically they rarely get their stomachs full. Furthermore, only half of the meat is eaten while the rest is dried and packed for when the hunting team has to go on their expeditions. Subai observes that this means the tribe's source of food depends entirely on the small number of warriors hunting and foraging. This makes their stream of food very random and unstable. He asks Yanhua if they have plants and domesticated animals to supplement their food supply. But Yanhua couldn't even comprehend what he asks. Even Subai has no idea how to explain farming and domestication to her. They don't even have enough to eat for themselves, so how can he explain they should raise pigs for months without eating them? Meanwhile, a lion-head man who was part of the hunting team approaches Yanhua and asks her who the new boy is. He asks her if she finally found a mate she can have children with. Yanhua of course cutely denies it, while explaining to his uncle Changxi that the man is Subai, the newly chosen sorcerer's heir. Hearing that the next sorcerer is found, the hunters celebrate the survival of their tribe. They point out that Subai seems to be too skinny to survive, so they offer him the meat they gathered. Subai asks Yanhua if they are usually this kind to guests, but Yanhua reiterates that it's because he is the future sorcerer, so the future of the tribe depends on him. This is further reinforced when even a small child approaches Subai and offers him his own portion of the meat. Subai smiles at the kindness of the small child, but he feels guilty about all this special treatment just because he is a sorcerer. A few hours later, the two are by a campfire cooking their dinner. Manhwa asks Subai why he didn't accept the child's offered food when it was an honor for him to offer his meat to the sorcerer, but Subai replies that it's not something to be proud of. When Subai notices Manhwa's hungry stare right at his roasting meat, Subai offers the meat to her. Manhwa tries to reject the offer, but soon she cannot hold herself back anymore and asks Subai for a bite. To Subai's horror, Manhwa's bite was so monstrous that it consumed most of the meat, bone and all. Subai nibbles on the remainder of the meat while reminiscing about the taste of salt. Thankfully, Manhwa has some and offers her stash to him. There was actually no more salt on the tribe, but she managed to save some. Most of their salt goes to the totem soldiers, and as a reservist, she offers her share to Subai. Subai is reminded once again how valuable certain commodities are for a primitive society. Back in modern times, he can easily get salt in any supermarket, but here, salt is a precious resource. He hands the salt back to Manhwa, rejecting her offer. Then, Subai goes on a deep thought on how he can solve the tribe's poor state. Subai asks Manhwa where they get salt in the first place, so Manhwa explains that their hunters went to another tribe to buy it. Every 15 days, another tribe called the Leopard Deer tribe holds a market where people from nearby tribes can go and buy many things. The next market day will occur within 10 days, so Subai decides to accompany them on the next trip, in the hopes of learning more about this world. Meanwhile, the old sorcerer calls upon Subai after dinner. As he enters the sorcerer's tent, the totem warriors of the tribe gather and discuss the old sorcerer's last moments. Inside the old sorcerer's tent, he explains to Subai that the inheritance ceremony will be conducted the following day. As for tonight, he will now tell Subai everything he may want to know as best as he can. First, he explains what it means to be the sorcerer of the tribe. As the sorcerer, he is the one who protects the tribe, inherits its future, and guides its direction. Only by doing all these can one be worthy of being called a sorcerer. In their world, the foundation of the tribe is the totem power. Each tribe has a different totem. As the sorcerer, he is the only one who can control the power of the totem, and activate the totem mark in the warrior's blood. The totem warriors are the strongest people in the tribe other than the sorcerer. With strong blood and ki, each totem warrior has great potential and holds a respected position in the tribe. However, no matter how good a warrior's talent was, how strong his ki is, or how pure his blood is, it would not be able to evolve naturally. If there is no totem mark to guide their power, they will not be able to harness the power of their blood. That is why the sorcerer's presence is very important to the tribe. The sorcerer is the only person in the tribe who can activate the warrior's potential and allow them to surpass ordinary people. In theory, every member of the tribe has the power of blood within them. With good training and guidance, even their weakest member can become a totem warrior. But between the ordinary soldiers, reservists, and totem warriors, there is a clear difference in ki and blood in terms of strength. Normally, reservists can deal with most beasts and will be the backbone of the tribe. But outside the tribe, there are many more powerful monsters that only the strongest totem warriors can defeat. Even though they are few in number, they are the main force of the tribe. And how strong a tribe is depends entirely on the number of totem warriors. As long as there is a sorcerer, they can train ordinary people to become totem warriors. Subai finally realizes why, in a dangerous primitive society, the sorcerer's status is the most important in the tribe. However, the old sorcerer further explains that their abilities are not only limited to training the warriors. They can also create domino magic. The old sorcerer opens a blanket that contains various scrolls, carvings, and herbs. Those were all the methods of creating domino magic that the sorcerer knows of. Subai opens one of the scrolls, which contains strange writing he had never seen before. The writings start to glow, and Subai starts getting dizzy. The old sorcerer explains that he can't read it right now, but once the inheritance ceremony is over, he will be able to understand its contents. He shows Subai a piece of bone with carvings on it, and explains that it is what's called domino magic. As long as he has magic power, he can activate it. There are many kinds of magic. This includes poison techniques for poisoning, blessing techniques, and healing techniques for healing someone who is injured. There are also various blessing techniques that can increase strength, speed, and other attributes. Subai excitedly asks what area of magic the old sorcerer specializes in, and the sorcerer reveals he focuses on healing and blessing magic. Of course, that's just what he tells people. Not all abilities of a sorcerer cannot be made public so that they can still dodge attacks levied against them. The sorcerer is greatly admired, but this also makes them an easy target. He then reminds Subai that he has to remember and keep a secret all of the methods he learned inside the leather blanket. Subai promises to keep their tribal heritage a secret, but the old sorcerer suddenly falls into a coughing fit. Seeing the blood in the sorcerer's mouth, Subai jumps into action and catches the ill sorcerer. He uses his LVL1 healing magic on the old man, but the system gravely replies, "Ineffective healing, no proficiency increase." The old man smiles and weakly tells Subai that his wait wasn't in vain now that he has found his heir. He asks Subai not to waste his energy anymore since he is already exhausted. However, Subai continues using healing magic, which also continuously fails. The old sorcerer laments that he won't be able to see what wonders Subai will do in the future, but there is no time. They still have things to discuss. He asks Subai if he still remembers everything he was told, and Subai assures him he does. With that, the old sorcerer determinedly walks out of the tent and announces the start of the inheritance ceremony. In a raised stage in the middle of the village, the sorcerer asks Subai to kneel before him. The sorcerer then starts the ceremony before the whole village. He narrates how after 63 long years, it's finally time for a new sorcerer to guide them all. At the signal of the sorcerer, the other totem warriors start chanting and offer their blood to the new sorcerer. Their blood coalesces and spins around the stage. The sorcerer then gathers it into a ball where the tribe's totem can be drawn out. The totem then enters Subai, who is now bathed with light. Lastly, the sorcerer passes along his true inheritance. With his fingers, he passes along the truth of the sorcerer's history and the secret of the totem wealth. He injects it into Subai's head, who finds himself falling into space all over again. A few moments later, Subai found himself watching a kid going through a barren land with his tribe. The tribe is suffering under the scorching sun, starving, but continuing their trek to the ancestral land. Later that night, the kid holds a talisman and prays to the totem god to help him see the future of the tribe. In a flash of light, magic explodes from him, and the other tribe members finally notice what's happening. His mother and teacher, their tribe's sorcerer, hugs his prone form and scolds him for drinking so many doses of divine potions. The sorcerer's heir has done the taboo and he won't live long. However, the bleeding child smiles and tells his mother that he finally sees it. His mother consoles him and tells him to hold what he sees in his heart. She advises him not to depend on future predictions, but remember what he sees. They gaze into the night sky and wonder if the day will come when their tribe will grow in strength once again. However, the kid promises to do it, and when he grows up into a young man, he will lead his tribe. Subai wakes up and finds himself in one of the tribe's tents. He must have passed out during the ceremony after receiving the sorcerer's inheritance. Thanks to it, he can now understand how sorcery and the totems work in this world. Actually, the totems are basically like a sorcerer's script, which has evolved from the sorcerer's pattern collection. That also means the main secret of the inheritance ceremony is the pattern inheritance. Subai also notices that after the ceremony, his vision seemed to have improved greatly. He can now see things more clearly even though he's been nearsighted before. His body also seems to be getting inexhaustible strength. Subai opens his character attribute window and sees that he was right. Almost all of his status went up, with stamina, strength, and speed being doubled. His spirit had increased by tenfold and his magic power had increased way up. He truly is becoming a sorcerer. He wonders why there is a separate status for spirit and magic power when they have the same value. But thankfully, the system gives him an explanation. Spirit power directly influences one's magic power, which fuels one's magic. However, the system skills obtained through bonuses like Subai's level 1 healing will only exhaust spirit power, not the magic power. Speaking of bonuses, Subai accessed his daily reward, and due to passing out, he had 2 bonus items. First, he got a fruit knife and the other is a skill book. Linen textile crafting. Subai was disappointed at the truly random bonuses he received, but he figured that linen crafting should be useful in a primitive world. Most of the people in the tribe wear animal skins, but with linen, he can try to make a sackcloth in the future. A few moments later, Yanku enters and apologizes for disturbing Subai's rest. However, he needs to move into the main tent since he is now the tribe's sorcerer. Subai saddens upon remembering that and asks what happened to the old sorcerer's body. Changxi also enters the tent and explains that they have cremated him following his wishes. The only thing left after the cremation is a smooth gold stone. Thanks to the sorcerer's inheritance, Subai recognizes the stone as a relic. From a scientific point of view, the relic is actually a stone. But according to this world's legends, a person of infinite merit will leave relics after being cremated. Subai gently cradles the relic in his palm and promises to build a temple for it after they successfully reclaim their ancestral land. But for now, Subai has to get serious as the new sorcerer and leader of the Yanlong tribe. After moving to the main tent, Subai asks the two totem warriors regarding the situation of their tribe. First, how is their stock of meat? Changxi explains that they have barely enough meat for the totem warriors. The hardest part is that there will be none left for the supply of the 6 reservist soldiers. Subai was surprised that they have so few reservists, but they explain that originally, their tribe had 26. Unfortunately, many were captured and carried away by the Black Snake tribe totem warriors during the migration. These captives might have already died or turned into slaves. Subai realizes that he first needs to understand the threat of the Black Snake tribe to them. Thankfully, Yanku explains that the Black Snake tribe is very far from them for now. The Yanlong tribe's current location is also a bit barren, so other tribes have no reason for attacking them. Of course, that also means that they have difficulty hunting animals for food. It takes a day just for the totem warriors to travel and hunt prey, and another 3 days to catch enough prey for the whole tribe. Subai recognizes that their location is both boon and bane for the tribe. They do have trouble locating food, but this also means they won't be easy to target, and they can grow for a while. However, Subai also worries that they cannot rely on hunting for food to feed them all. He then remembers his new skill and asks the two men what they know about linen. Changxi explains that linen is a very rare product that can only be produced by the big tribes. He also admits that his childhood wish was to actually have enough linen to create new clothes, and still have more for his kids. They could trade to get linen, but they don't really have that much dried meat to barter with. The linen that gets sold in the market is so expensive that you would need 3 pieces of dried meat jerky for a roll of linen burlap. Subai doesn't really have any reference on how much a piece of jerky is, so Yanku uses Changxi's body as a measurement tool to showcase how much jerky and how much linen it equates to. After that, Subai realizes that linen must be so expensive, because the bigger tribes basically have a monopoly over it. Thus, he declares their tribe's first goal: they will get so much meat that they can eat as much as they can. A few days later, the hunting group led by Changxi is roaming out of the village once again. One of the members complains to Changxi why they aren't hunting for prey, but instead looking for grass, but Changxi just knocks him in the head and points out that it's for the future of their tribe. A few days ago, Subai told the totem warriors that he actually knows the process to make linen. He asks them to keep it a secret because they might become targets if it gets leaked. But for now, he asks Changxi to look for a particular plant when they go out on their hunting trips. It's a material they would need to make linen fabric, and their food supply would depend on Changxi's effort to find it. Burdened with this important task, Changxi declares to his companions that they have to succeed. Meanwhile, back in the village, Subai is still thinking about their food supply. The village's supply of beef jerky is only enough for 15 days. They have so little time, and he isn't even sure if Changxi can find the material. Even if they did find it, Subai is also not sure what to do with the linen creation process. Should he teach everyone how to make linen in person? He hesitates on doing this because the method is a secret, so he shouldn't easily give up the whole thing. What Subai really wants is an assistant to who he could teach the whole process to. Then, he could have her teach others different stages of the process. That way, only his assistant would know the whole method. In reality, there are other problems he also has to fix in the tribe, like the drinking water supply, salt, and sanitation. He shakes his head in frustration. He couldn't even take care of himself when he was a writer, so how can he manage a whole tribe? Yanhua enters his tent and sees the distressed Subai. Thinking that his actions might be due to a fever, Yanhua touches her forehead to his own to check his temperature. Subai abruptly steps back in embarrassment and asks why she's eavesdropping on his tent. However, Yanhua explains that she's actually guarding the sorcerer, while her father and the other totem warriors are out of the village. Subai teases her and asks if she's really that reliable, prompting Yanhua to strangle him herself. Later, Subai voices his frustrations to Yanhua and asks her if it's normal for the sorcerer to deal with all these problems alone. Yanhua points out that the sorcerer usually has an assistant, but the previous assistant died, trying to protect the old sorcerer when the Black Serpent tribe attacked. The talk regarding the Black Serpent tribe saddens the two, so to change the topic, Subai asks Yanhua if she has any recommendations for a new assistant. He would need someone smart, hardworking, and have useful ideas. Yanhua giggles and asks him why he's just describing her, but Subai scolds her and points out she's none of those things. Therefore, Yanhua instead suggests he choose a Miko as his assistant. Not familiar with the term, Subai asks her to clarify. Yanhua explains that a Miko is a woman who takes care of the daily life of the sorcerer. This includes cleaning, doing chores, giving instructions, and so on. Subai thinks this is exactly what he needs, so he asks Yanhua to lead him to someone that might be suitable to fill the role. Yanhua recalls a conversation with her father, who pushes for her to get the Miko role. Since she was with Subai from the start, she would be a perfect fit for the position. Being a Miko is the dream of every girl in the tribe, but Yanhua violently opposes her father's suggestion because she cannot avenge their tribe if she becomes the Miko. No matter what, she wants to remain as a totem warrior and destroy the Black Snake tribe. A few minutes later, Yanhua leads Subai to a tent in the village. She explains that her friend might be suitable for the role and she is currently working inside. Subai takes a peek inside the tent and sees Yanhua's friend, a beautiful girl with fox ears and a tail. Subai comments to Yanhua that her friend looks beautiful but very weak. Even the tribal blood marks on her face are starting to fade. Yanhua agrees with Subai's assessment that her friend Yu Ying looks weak. However, she assures him that Yu Ying is also kind and diligent. She might be a little stubborn at times because she is Changxi's niece. Her parents died when she was little and she was raised by her aunt and uncle Changxi. Recently, her aunt became pregnant, so Yu Ying decided to move here instead. She also stubbornly refused to eat anything from her aunt's house because she doesn't want to take any food away from the unborn baby. Subai praises Yu Ying's decision, but Yanhua couldn't understand the logic of it. If Yu Ying hadn't moved out, then she could have eaten meat every day, unlike eating only fruits and grass here. Subai tries to explain to Yanhua that there is a big difference between giving and receiving. He remembers his own childhood and recognizes that Yu Ying must have come here to calm her mind. Inside, the other girls are trying to convince Yu Ying to move back to her commander Changxi's house so that she won't suffer anymore. They point out that she's so beautiful, and her parents were once the pillars of the tribe, so she can surely serve the sorcerer as the Miko. Yu Ying blushes and shakes her head, rejecting the notion that the sorcerer would want her as the Miko. The others continue to tease her, so she shyly accepts that she might want to be, but she also points out that it's impossible for her. After all, Yanhua is more suitable than her, and Yanhua has wanted to be Miko ever since she was a child. The eavesdropping Subai didn't know this, and he looked at his companion in curiosity. However, Yanhua abruptly barges inside the tent and angrily asks Yu Ying why she's loudly declaring her wish. Yu Ying asks her if she was eavesdropping, prompting Subai himself to enter and explain that they weren't eavesdropping, but they were just observing. He asked Yanhua to bring him there. He then sits across from Yu Ying and informs her that he has a few questions for her. First, he wants to know if she can write. The other girls are surprised that Subai can write, but Yu Ying dejectedly replies that she cannot. Subai feels guilty and asks Yanhua if he had asked something too seriously. And Yanhua reveals that in reality, only the great tribes have their own written words. This means that small tribes like theirs don't, as writing is a very rare skill. Subai doesn't really understand yet the level of knowledge in this world, so he just tells Yu Ying directly that Yanhua recommended her for the position of Miko, and asks her if she wants it. Yanhua explains that she wants to be a totem warrior, to avenge their tribe, so the most suitable person to be the Miko now is Yu Ying. After all, that is also her childhood dream. The shy Yu Ying fiddles with her fingers and replies that she cannot accept the job because she's too stupid and always makes mistakes. Upon hearing her answer, Subai stands up and walks away. He doesn't want to force Yu Ying into the position. Yanhua runs after Subai and tries to reason with him that Yu Ying is just very shy and weak. So why is he giving up so easily on convincing her? Right now, if they leave her alone, she will just hate herself for rejecting the offer and feel more useless than ever before. Subai retorts that he actually also wants Yu Ying to be the Miko. However, opportunities must be taken by oneself, not forced upon by others. If Yu Ying really wants to become a Miko, then she must fight against her weakness and take advantage of this opportunity. This whole thing is not about him, but about her. In the distance, the form of a young girl comes running after them from the tent. Yanhua smiles since Yu Ying must have been able to overcome her shyness, but it turns out that it was some other girl who hands over a gift to Subai as a form of appreciation. They were about to go again when the girl stopped them and asked them to wait a little bit longer. It turns out that Yu Ying was truly trying to catch up to them, but her running is a bit slow. A few seconds later, an out-of-breath Yu Ying catches up to them and determinedly proclaims to Subai that she wants to become a Miko. A little while later, a crying Yu Ying is being consoled by Yanhua, after Subai accepted her offer to become the Miko. She was crying because she was so happy that she really became the Miko. She never dared to dream before, and now her dream has come true. Manhwa is actually worried that Subai easily accepted Yu Ying in the position, but Subai shrugs because it's not like he knows how to test who to pick as a Miko. Although the two girls worry Subai, he couldn't deny that they are at least quite attractive to look at. He then advises Yu Ying to wash the tears off her face so they can finally start working. Yu Ying looks at him confused and asks why she would waste water to wash her face when they are already in short supply of water. Subai immediately steps away from the two girls and nervously asks the two girls how often the tribe members take a bath. Manhwa proudly exclaims that their tribe actually always takes showers. For example, she herself showers every year during the rainy season. This answer stumps Subai, his brain not comprehending what kind of beings he had been living with since he was transported into another world. The tribe's sense of smell might be strong, but they are also adaptable to the smells, so they might have gotten used to their own stink. If Subai wants to implement a clean sanitation system, then there must first be a sufficient source of water. And considering future developments, they must find a way to divert water for irrigation. From the two girls, he learns that there is a small lake in the forest southeast of the village, where they usually get their water. However, there is a group of very powerful beasts nearby, so only totem warriors can get close to it. This limits the water they collect, which is just enough for them to quench their thirst. Thus, Subai declares that they must first solve their problem and asks the two girls to lead him to the lake. In an instant, the two girls grab hold of Subai and hold him back. They cry out that he cannot leave the village because it's too dangerous for him. There are some totem warriors who are exiled from their own tribes, and these warriors target small tribes and kidnap the sorcerer. They then force the sorcerers to perform the inheritance ritual. In the past, one of their own sorcerers was kidnapped, and when they finally found him, he was so exhausted that he died. That's why they made it a rule that a sorcerer may never leave the tribe unless absolutely necessary. Subai thinks it over and remembers that there are 11 totem warriors in the tribe. 6 of them went hunting, leaving the rest to defend the tribe. He realizes that depending on them to gather water would just be a waste of their energy, and they need to free them from the task of gathering it. In a flash, one of the totem warriors secretly guarding Subai, Shahong, grabs hold of another totem warrior approaching the tribe. The approaching totem warrior, Black Fang, tries to fight back, but his dagger shatters against Shahong. However, these two totem warriors are both from the Yanlong tribe. Their speed surprised Subai since he couldn't even see their movements. The totem warrior Black Fang was surprised to see them on the outskirts of the village, but Subai explains that he wanted to see their water source. He then asks the totem warrior why he's alone traveling, but the totem warrior quickly reports that one of them was injured. He was ordered to obtain domino magic from the sorcerer so they can heal the wounded warrior. Subai quickly jumps into action and orders the warrior to take him to the injured. In the middle of the forest, the injured warrior Mai Meng is being comforted by Yanku. Mai Meng urges them to leave him since the beasts would probably smell his blood and attack them. He only asks Yanku to give his share of the food to his son. However, Yanku assures him that help would come and they should just wait. The bush near them rustles as someone approaches, and one of the totem warriors quickly throws his spear. However, this turns out to be Subai's group. Yanku harshly berates them for bringing the sorcerer out of the village, but Subai defends them and explains that he was the one who insisted on leaving. He then puts his hand on the injured totem warrior and assesses the wound. The wound was so grievous that an ordinary person would have died from it. He then casts his healing skill on the wound. The warriors watching are astounded at Subai's skill. Normally, it would take at least 30 days to learn a magic spell, but Subai can already cast one, even though he's only been a sorcerer for a few days. The healing occurs slowly, due to its low level, so Subai decides to cast it continuously on the warrior. A few minutes later, the huge wound is completely healed. Yanku orders Mai Meng to return to the village to rest despite his protest. Mai Meng might be a totem warrior, but he's still in danger outside of the forest. Not only do wild beasts roam the forests, but there are also strong monsters that only great warriors can face. Each beast can be categorized into 3 types depending on their strength, namely mixed race beasts, pure race beasts, and inherited race beasts. Corresponding to this, the totem warriors can also be categorized into 3 based on their strengths. In the Yanlong tribe, the ones at the top rank are Yanjiao, Changxi, Qingyan, Mai Meng, and Shahong. Below them are the intermediate and junior rank totem warriors. Subai observes that wild beasts with ranged attacks would be difficult to deal with if they suddenly attack. His own healing skill also doesn't seem to actually heal, but just speeds up the recovery of someone. In the fight earlier, he could clearly see how Blacktooth's weapon was destroyed against the much stronger warrior Sha Hong. Meanwhile, the others are planning their expedition back to the village. However, Subai protests and demands that he first be brought to the lake. Yanku tries to retort that there are too many beasts for them to properly protect him, but Subai is firm with his decision. They can indeed survive in their current conditions, but the children, women, and old people in their village would surely suffer. He clutches the necklace symbolizing his rank, and remembers the promise of the past sorcerer to protect their tribe. Fortunately, Yanku finally agrees and heads to the lake. Subai notices that Yu Ying was picking up some fruits along the way. Yu Ying happily explains that the fruits can quench their thirst while walking, making Subai realize that he might be more useless than Yu Ying in this expedition. Thankfully, they finally reach their destination, the lake. After a few hours of rest to wait for the sun to rise, Yanku and Subai surveyed the lake. Across from them is a group of deadwood wolves, who can launch spikes from a great distance. Seeing them from a distance already makes Subai shiver in fright. Mai Meng was actually injured by a deadwood wolf because it happened to be near them when they were gathering water. Yanku confides to Subai that they can actually deal with the deadwood wolves. However, the problem is the rock crocodiles that live in the lake. They are the absolute masters of the lake, and they number more than a dozen. Not only that, they are considered purebred beasts, meaning that even if all the totem warriors of their tribe fight, they can barely hunt down two of them. Because of these crocodiles, they usually only gather when the crocodiles go on land to take a nap. They then run away when the crocodiles wake up or after gathering water. Subai realizes that if these were on Earth, humans would probably already be extinct. He then remarks to Yanku that their current method is too inefficient and dangerous, so instead, they should outsmart the beasts. How? With digging, of course. Subai explains that the lake is basically a pool that can hold water. Lake water usually comes from rainfall, surface runoff, or underground water. However, if it was from rainfall during the rainy season, then they should have been able to see traces of evaporating water around the lake. Since there are none, this lake most probably gets water from surface runoff or underground water. This means that if they can just make a canal in the lowlands near the lake, then they can channel the lake's water to the tribe. Then their water shortage problem would be over. The others commend Subai's plan, and Black Fang even volunteers to lead the digging efforts. Subai remembers the clash between Black Fang and Sha Hong yesterday, so he asks Yanku why they seem to attack immediately upon hearing something, even though they still don't know who it is. Yanku explains that when they enter the hunting grounds, they are no different than the wild animals. They either hunt for food or become food themselves. Especially at night when animals' sense of hearing is heightened, striking first increases their chance of winning. Moreover, when two combatants are of equal strength, getting injured usually determines the winner. The number of warriors of the Yanlong tribe is really small too, so they cannot be careless. All of these safety procedures make Subai feel guilty, and he apologizes for carelessly leaving the village. Meanwhile, Black Fang had already started digging in the ground. Subai disappointedly stares at him since he hadn't even shown him the place where he should dig. A few minutes later, the group is more organized with Yu Ying showing Black Fang the direction to dig the ditch, while Yanhua starts getting rid of the weeds on the ground. Subai couldn't help but admire Yanhua's well-shaped behind, while she bends over and clears the ground. Meanwhile, Yu Ying reports that Black Fang's hole is getting wetter, meaning that they'll soon reach water. Subai wonders why everything seems too easy, and just as he predicted, a commotion suddenly catches his attention. Across the lake, a fierce fight between the beasts is happening. Subai orders the others to stop digging since it would just benefit the beasts for now if they take over the hole. Instead, he asks them if they know of any bamboo nearby. The others don't really know what a bamboo is, so Subai describes it as a plant with a hard exterior but a hollow cavity inside. Since there's no bamboo nearby, Yanhua suggests 3 other plants that are very similar to Subai's description. These plants are the hollow tree, the red knuckly tree, and the heartless grass. 2 of these can only be found in the ancestral land, so they really have no choice but to use the hollow trees nearby. With it, Subai plans to create a primitive water pipe. Later, Yanku starts using his immense strength to topple nearby hollow trees. Subai surveys the fallen trees, and much to his satisfaction, the tree has a very tough outside, but the hole in the middle is not too small either. Basically, it's perfect for flowing water. Yanku still couldn't understand what Subai plans to do, but thankfully, Yu Ying reports that Black Fang had finally created a well. Now, Subai can demonstrate the pipe. It was the first time for the others to learn that one can get water by just digging in the ground. Manhwa quickly suggests that they should just dig another hole back in their village, but Subai explains this might be a bad idea. The location of their tribe is very barren with relatively few trees around. This might mean that there's not much groundwater underneath the earth. Compared to there, water seeps here because of their proximity to the lake. As for the hollow trees, he explains that they would use them to drain the water from the hole. Over time, more and more water will seep into the hole, filling it up, and it can even overflow. However, if they bury the hollow log in the hole, water will flow out from the center of the hollow log. If they then connect numerous hollow logs from end to end, they can connect the water flow from the hole into the tribe. The others finally get the whole picture of Subai's plan, and they enthusiastically give their support. However, Yu Ying is still confused with one concept. If the water can seep into the hole just like what Subai said earlier, then won't the water seep out of it also? Why is the water accumulating then instead of seeping deeper into the ground? Subai explains that this is because the water pressure in the lake is high, while the water pressure in the hole is low. Even if the collected water in the hole seeps into the ground, it won't seep much because of this. Of course, water seepage can also be affected by the soil quality, but thanks to the various knowledge that Subai obtained from researching and writing novels, he judged that the soil near the lake should be fine. The others wouldn't be able to understand the science of that part, so he decides not to explain it to them. With Subai's plan fully laid out, he starts ordering them to start their various tasks. Manhwa, Yu Ying, and Black Fang would find some branches and weeds to cover up the hole so that wild animals wouldn't find it and make it their home. Afterward, they should keep watch over the lake and keep an eye on the movements of the beasts. If any wild beasts approach, they should try to catch them but retreat and leave the hole if they cannot. He then also instructs Yanku to accompany him back to the tribe to gather some more able-bodied men. Back in the village, Subai rallies the villagers into solving their tribe's water problem. He instructs Mai Meng to lead the reservists in temporarily guarding the tribe. He then gives Sha Hong her own team to guard the main road between the tribe and the lake. Lastly, he groups the other men into cutting down the hollow trees, transporting them, and connecting them together. A few hours later, a group of tribesmen approaches Subai and asks him how exactly they should connect the hollow log. The two halves of the tree cannot connect, and water keeps leaking out between them. To answer his question, Subai takes a piece of stick and draws an example on the ground. He shows them how they should cut the hollow log's end into a convex shape, while the other end is cut into a concave shape. Then, the two pieces would fit together like a puzzle and be joined together seamlessly. 2 days later, the village's project is finally completed, and water starts flowing out into the village. The whole tribe erupts into cheer and they profusely sing the praise of their sorcerer. Subai meanwhile tries to tell them that he was just directing while everyone else did the hard work. He was happy since originally, he thought it would take a week to finish the pipeline, but the inhuman physical strength of the people here easily finished the task. But now, Subai gets serious and tells Yu Ying that she would have to disseminate a new rule for the tribe. Everyone should drink lots of hot water. The other tribesmen first question the rule to drink hot water, even when Yu Ying tries to explain that Subai told them there are invisible bugs in the water, making them sick. They even eat bugs on purpose when they are hungry, and they have always been drinking water from the lake for many years, so why the change now? Their argument greatly intimidated the shy Yu Ying, but she reminds herself that she has to change to better serve the sorcerer as the Miko. She yells out to them that the sorcerer would never hurt them all, and that drinking unboiled water might give them diarrhea and other diseases. This finally convinces the other tribe members, as they remember how some of their family members did die due to unexplained illnesses. Later that night, Subai also asks Yu Ying if she was able to remind the people to cool down the water before drinking, and Yu Ying assures him that she did. Subai learned from Yan Jiao that in the past, the tribe consisted of at least 1,000 people. But now there are less than 100 of them. It would be hard to increase their population rapidly, so instead, he should at least minimize deaths. This means drinking boiled water, ensuring food supply, and improving hygiene conditions. He also has to level up his healing skill in case of any major accidents that may occur. Subai then notices Yu Ying laying down some hay in the ground, and she explains to him that as Miko, she actually has to sleep next to him. Subai blushes, and in reality, he fears that he might not be able to endure living next to such a beautiful girl. The two lie down for the night, and Subai asks her if she really has to lie so close to him. Yu Ying smiles and promises that even though she's not a warrior, she can still buy time for the sorcerer to escape. Subai can't explain to her that with the way things are going, the most dangerous thing for him is the beautiful girl beside him. Subai closes his eyes and decides that he should just focus on going to sleep. He starts counting sheep, but the sheep slowly morphs into Yanhua's sexy body. The intrusive thoughts prevent Subai from going to sleep, so he decides that he should just spend the night practicing his healing skills. He can't ask someone to practice with at night, so he can only use his own body to practice. Thus, he pricks his finger with a knife and casts healing on it, repeating the process throughout the night. That will be all for this manhwa. Unfortunately, the author has passed away. We wanted to show our respect by covering his work that we loved. We will continue the story if it's ever picked up again. Thanks, guys.